CBC's Blue Sky radio program spends 49 minutes attacking Israel with zero balance offered to listeners. This is certainly a hard-hitting question, one whose answer has many facets to consider to paint the full picture. Israeli Defense Forces, IDF, soldiers are currently in the Gaza Strip in an effort to dismantle Hamas and rescue hostages taken on by Hamas and other terrorist groups. As this report was written, multiple murdered hostages have been recovered by the IDF, and Hamas has targeted, murdered and kidnapped aid workers. But this complex reality was entirely absent from Blue Sky's framing. Mashiach interviewed Deirdre Noonan, an orthopedic surgeon from Saskatchewan who has been to Gaza multiple times even prior to the war. A member of Doctors Against Genocide, Mashiach interviewed Noonan asking about her experience volunteering during the war, but the questions Mashiach posed were far from hard-hitting. More striking was Mashiach's treatment of Israel's claim that Hamas uses hospitals for military operations. When she asked Noonan whether she had seen evidence of this, Noonan replied, "I'm a surgeon, I'm not gonna dig a hole. My job is not to look for military installations." She added that there has not been appropriate contextualization or independent verification, suggesting the claims are not credible. Mashiach offered no follow-up nor pushback. The assumption that Hamas' long-standing use of human shields has not been corroborated, and of course, why would one believe former Israeli hostages themselves, is one thing, but to paint Israel as perpetually not trustworthy is certainly notable on both Noonan's part, and the host's. Honest Reporting Canada recently reported on an episode of CBC's podcast Ideas with Nala I that covered the history and reality of human shields, wherein the guest expert, Nicola Perugini, dismissed accusations of Hamas' use of human shields by saying that the reality in Gaza makes it impossible for Hamas to not use civilian infrastructure to fight Israel, rendering Israel perpetually guilty of targeting the entire population. And in this case, Blue Sky hosts a doctor who openly admits she is not qualified to assess military activity, yet is given a platform to cast doubt on Israel's evidence anyway. It seems as though the CBC cannot decide which Hamas defense it prefers, that Hamas tactics are unavoidable, or that they are unproven. What is consistent is the result, a narrative that always points the finger at Israel. Two other interviewees joined after Noonan, John Allen, a former Canadian ambassador to Israel and perpetual Israel critic, and Catherine Gegout, an international relations professor. When Allen mistakenly referred to a study suggesting Gaza casualties were lower, instead of higher, Mashiach immediately jumped in, "John, does it matter if that number is lower? When you talk about numbers, they're still people." Allen corrected himself and added that proportionality matters in Israel exercising its right to defense. The irony is that the casualty numbers are likely lower, and made up of terrorists, than what Hamas is claiming, and what the United Nations is therefore citing as reliable, which actually does matter. And even when Allen further corrected himself citing the study, all that mattered to Mashiach is that the narrative she elected to platform remained unchallenged. Allen continued the conversation by mentioning Judea and Samaria, West Bank, claiming that Israel is effectively saying, it's going to do whatever it wants, and then later said that Trump holds the cards in ending the war. Mashiach then posited a question from a listener in Regina, who asked if Canada is violating its responsibility as a signatory to the United Nations Convention Against Genocide by arming Israel as it targets journalists, aid workers, schools, and hospitals, to flatten entire cities beyond recognition and burn children alive.